obviously one of our news and amuse topics tonight, of course, is the verdict. And obviously it was, from your perspective, it was a surprise that they got second degree. That was not something that I think a lot of people were anticipating. But
I just am so used to being disappointed that it just didn't occur to me.
No, that's fair.
It didn't occur to me. Like, I'm so used to being disappointed. I think I was just a little bit, but I was my call was that they would convict him on second degree and the lesser of the charges, which was, I believe, second degree manslaughter. But yeah, so I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'll be, hopefully more pleasantly surprised come sentencing, because now he can get 40 years. And he can get 40 years. And the truth is, people, we don't need to give him 40 years.
No, and apparently
he's not going to make it a couple of years.
Yeah, well, apparently they're already saying he's got to be put in solitary, like he can't be in
he's not making it. He's not making it for the long haul.
But essentially, he's a sacrificial lamb. Oh, yeah. It's basically what he is.
Oh, they all just sort of tossed him aside. Well, as well they should have.
It's easier, but you see, that's the thing. They're trying to protect the system. They're not concerned about a one-off situation, because there are one-off situations. There are people that they can just cast aside because, again, it comes back to he got convicted because there was video evidence, and that's it. And just like there is video evidence in the Michaela, forgive me for botching her name, the young lady who unfortunately was killed in Columbus, but the video evidence is what is going to decide whether a person is guilty or not. And that, ultimately what has to happen is it has to be a requirement that police officers have to wear body cams. I mean, that just has to be.
Well, and like I said a few days ago, that now we have finally legislation that's supposed to be police reform. It doesn't require that. It actually requires them to do background checks into the officers they hire. This had to be legislated. And it also did something so much fun as saying that police officers cannot arrest any child under the age of 7. We're that far back. So, but what do you think of my little thing there? So you get it, mug shot.
Mug madness. Oh,
no, mug shot madness. See, mug.
Oh, mug shot madness. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. That's really good.
I know.
And speaking of people who are arrested, we talk all the time about.
I have problems with this.
Well, I'm sure there are many reasons why, but again, this gets back to the fact that we have systemic corruption, not just in the country, but obviously here in Broward County, and this has been going on for a very long time. Obviously, Wasserman Schultz is pretty much at the head of the class, but our superintendent Robert Runcie has. He's been the ire of a lot of people for a very long time, much like former Sheriff Scott Israel became somewhat of a sacrificial lamb for a lot of people in this county who demanded justice. And let's face it, Broward County really is emblematic of a lot of the country. You have a lot of haves and a lot of have-nots. And when the haves have something happen to them that they don't like, they demand justice in a way that isn't exactly justice.
It requires somebody being fired.
Yes.
And somebody is going to have to take the fall. What's so interesting about this, you didn't live here back when the last school board we had and the last superintendent that we had, they had to be disbanded by the state of Florida.
Correct.
And because there was so much corruption in their investigation that they couldn't even find which person it was. So when Robert Runcie came, he came after they had disbanded our entire school board. Yeah. And so he was brought in to, clean up the corruption. And from everything that I know of him, he's a decent person. So I've met him, but I don't really know him. And there's something very off about this. It's off. Who gets arrested on a perjury charge? That doesn't happen. And also, by the way, this woman, the Broward attorney, she has been like a very well-liked, very reputable attorney for like 40 years here. And so something is just off about this, whether it's a witch hunt, whether like you said, somebody has to be accountable for something. Something is off about this.
I don't have the full details. I just know that there is a major rift between the superintendent of Broward Schools, the Broward County School Board, and the Broward County Teachers Union. Now, whose side everybody's on, I can't really say. All I can tell you is if you think you have problems where you are with politics, come here.
But you know what this really is, and I don't think people realize that who aren't inside things. Like what this really looks like, what this looks like to me is a coup. Like what this looks like to me is some sort of like uprising takeover of certain power players that don't like the current power position of the way the school board is. And this is the way to uproot that. So I think that, to me, this looks like a behind the scenes coup.
For those of you who know who Fred Guttenberg is, may his daughter rest in peace, but he is somebody who has really taken the tragedy that was Parkland and turned it into political opportunism. And he has used it as a weapon. And one of the things that he did, I'm not going to get into the full details, but let's just say he saw to it that Scott Israel could not make a living. Basically could not find work.
Yep. And
this is the vindictiveness that privileged upper class people have over society.
Right.
When they get, especially if it's tragic, forget it. There is nothing they won't do to.
Then they'll notice problems, and they'll still only be.
Yeah.
They'll only still care about it in a very, very small little echo chamber framework that they care about it in. But yeah, then there's this sort of like all of a sudden there's this entitlement to just anybody who wasn't exactly who you want them to be. Now you're going to use all your platform to cancel them. That's what it is.
Well, again, it gets back to, when you get in the way of the machine, if you will, there is nothing they will not do in order to get them out of the way. And let's face it, it's not it's not equitable in terms of how, Runcie was compensated versus how teachers are compensated. So naturally, there's going to be resentment to some degree.
But that's the case. But okay, but that's not personal to him.
Well, I understand that. You see, Runcie was making $330,000 a year, which is almost 10 times the amount the average teacher makes. That's pretty serious business. And you better believe the resentment is very real. It is a power position to be a superintendent, to be a sheriff, to be any one of these county-wide positions, especially in Broward County. We're one of the most densely populated counties there is, I think. There's a lot that really goes on, and no one really can get to the bottom of it because you don't know who's really on your side. Who's really on the side of justice and who's just on the side of their own, opportunism. And so, before we jump to conclusions,
I'm just saying
we do need to see a thorough investigation.
And I just feel like this is the kind of thing. And by the way, this kind of hackery reporting, doing this, and this is why I call it mugshot madness. This will be permanently associated and affiliated in people's heads with the word, perjury. This is all because you can't say that he did it. You could only say alleged or arrested for. But when you put it there, it makes a connection for people. And so this is very intentional. And I am very suspicious of what's really the background story to these two people being arrested. I've never heard of somebody being arrested for perjury in a situation like this.
And ultimately, we will get to the bottom of it.
Yes,
we will find out exactly why this is happening the way that it's happening.
But something is, and I'm not saying he didn't do something wrong. I'm not saying that maybe there wasn't perjury. I'm just saying the fact that somebody would be arrested for this is not typical. So this is a power play somehow by somebody. That's just how I see it nowadays.
Well, again, always suspect expect the unexpected. That's really what you need to do. You can't just assume that what's happening here is on the level. And I hate saying it that way, but a lot of us just don't trust the process, and rightfully so. Why would you trust the process? I'm not saying that Runcie is a saint by any stretch of the imagination, but I've seen enough over the past several years to lead you to believe that if this is a one, or in this case, 2-person, arrest, knowing what goes on around here doesn't seem like this is this is really like a systemic corruption overhaul.
Yeah.
This is like you're arresting 2 people. No, you got to arrest about 20 to 25.
That's the thing. See, this is something is very shifty about
if you're going to take down the corruption, then you got to really take it down. You can't take down a couple of people. Like I said, there's definitely more to this than what we know as of now. So before anybody jumps to any heavy conclusions, I think it's very important that we do wait and we do get the facts. Just like what happened in Columbus, Ohio is different than what happened in Minneapolis. You have to be willing to see the evidence before you make any drastic conclusions. With that said, It looks like justice will be done with Derek Chauvin, but will that lead to systemic justice for the system itself?
Not in Florida.
End qualified immunity, and then we're talking. Until then, you're just, pissing in the wind, as they say.
Yes, and the people in Minneapolis, even though he was held accountable, the people in Minneapolis are on the hook for the $27 million settlement.
Which they should not be.
Suit. No, of course not. So that's really, that's a huge problem.
But nonetheless, it's one step in the right direction, and we have to keep taking steps in the right direction. And from a law enforcement perspective, it looks like the city of Birmingham, Alabama, is taking the right approach when it comes to criminal justice reform. And that, of course, is Mayor Woodfin. A friend in weed is a friend in need. I like it.
No, a friend indeed.
Oh, no, in weed.
A friend in weed is a friend indeed.
That's what I said.
You said in need.
I did say in need?
Instead of indeed.
I said in need. Okay. Well, I made a mistake.
It says a friend in weed is a friend indeed.
That is definitely a good line.
See, and so now
Mayor Woodfin, if you somehow catch this, we definitely would like to have you on the podcast.
Mayor Woodfin, we'd love to talk with you. You are definitely a friend indeed.
15,000 marijuana. Listen, that's common sense as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You absolutely should expunge any of those ridiculous records, because there is no way that there is any justification behind.
We still have people serving life sentences for marijuana.
Correct. And why is that?
Well,
because we have a for-profit prison industry.
See, what this is, and this is probably at this point, well, depending on how long this gentleman's been the mayor and what their vibe is there, it's very likely that they decriminalized it a long time ago, stopped prosecuting it, that the DA stopped doing anything about it. And this could be a very good symbolic thing. And I'm not saying that it's not important, because it is important.
No, it's definitely important, but we need
to be expunging everybody's
you have
records.
You have to take it where you can. And that's why, a lot of times we've gotten the thing that has to happen now post, the Bernie run of the last 5 years, is to figure out how to be more strategic, because most people were simply being activists, if you will. Now it's about, how do we really take power? How do we really make things go the way that we need them to go? And while we can continue to fight on Capitol Hill and elect congressional non-corporate representatives, no matter what anybody tells you, that's still the right way to go, even if it's not moving fast enough. But you have to look at what you could be doing at the ground level, especially at the state level. And if at the state level, they are going to decriminalize cannabis, that's good enough, because eventually everybody's going to do it, because they're going to realize that they're going to lose state funding if they don't legalize it, because people will simply move out to a state that has it. And that is no one wants that.
It's so ridiculous from a revenue perspective to not, it's clearly beneficial. Crime has actually been down in places that have legalized weed. I know in Colorado for sure their crime rate was down over the years since legalization. Now it probably was down anyway as well, but point being, it is not a problem.
No, they make it to be something more than it really is. And that's the whole point, is, we are not living in a situation where people need to be treating this as anything other than a recreational, enjoyment, if you will. You could call it a drug, you call it whatever you want, but the truth is, cannabis is something that has way more pros than it has cons.
Yes.
Does it have cons? Sure, it does. Like anything. Anything can be a vice.
What are the cons?
Well, you can abuse it and obviously hurt your brain cells if you smoke it all day, every day.
Whatever.
But definitely something that should not be in anybody's business. If you want to smoke cannabis, if you want to smoke cannabis, you should have every right to do that.
I am not really, I know that young people do it, and I'm not like hypocritical and thinking that, I would tell them not to, but that is the only thing that is just because their brains are still developing. But, I kind of survived.
No, I think you're okay.
I turned out okay.
You're okay. I'm not going to say great.
That's what I was going to say. It's not like, an ringing endorsement, but yeah, pretty decent.
No, but I think everyone would agree that it's definitely at the point now where it does make sense to legalize it. And the more we make things just become more commonplace, like universal health care, like universal basic income, that's where this is going to become commonplace. And now what's his goal? Where's he going? What's he up to? Because I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. Mayor Garcetti is trying to implement a test run for universal basic income, means tested, if you will, in Los Angeles. And is that a good thing? Yeah, it's a great thing.
I
think it could definitely work. And
I think it's a very good thing.
I think they definitely will see some positives come of it, especially if they focus on the areas of LA that need the most help, Compton, Inglewood, and Watts in particular. And ultimately, if they are able to generate revenue so that way they can lift people out of extreme poverty, that is just going to have incredible benefit.
I'm just curious what's his angle?
His angle is there's going
what's in it for him.
There's going to be a U.S. Senate race coming up.
Okay, that's what's in it for him.
Because remember, the person who was selected to become the next U.S. Senator by Governor Newsom is Alex Padilla, who is a complete hack for the party. So it's not like he has any real established
and so he has like in it's definitely next year is a Senate race.
They're definitely going to have a primary in California.
Okay, so there's his angle, because it wasn't I wasn't feeling it that Garcetti just woke up and just felt like had such a conscience and just
Jen
felt
has a not so positive opinion about Mayor
I have not so positive opinion about most of these establishment goons, and I think they're all just nepotistic, monarchic families of goons.
Seizing on the opportunity is essentially what you're alluding
to. They're opportunists, but these are people that are born with the opportunity. He's where he is because of his dad. And it's no different than Cuomo. In California, you've got, it's the same thing. It's these families that sort of entrench themselves, like we have monarchies in this country, like the Clintons or the Bushes or the Obamas. And this is just that on a city level. And so, I generally find it just grotesque.
It is grotesque, and it isn't ending anytime soon, because now they want the Trump kids to get involved. Apparently, even though she's not blood related, but who's the one in North Carolina? That's what was her name? The other one, Lara Trump. Yeah, so she's going to end up running for the U.S. Senate. Then all of this nepotism never ends. But the bottom line is, if you have a good cause that you're fighting for, like UBI, you got to start somewhere. And if ultimately Andrew Yang or even Dianne Morales, both who support UBI, end up becoming the mayor of New York City, I have no doubt that they'll test it there too. We know that Mayor de Blasio ain't going to do that. So we've just got to, hopefully get in somebody who understands that these types of promoting the general welfare the right way is what is going to allow us to get to that point.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.